Reports of an active shooter had agencies in the southern half of Maine racing. We now know that it was all part of a hoax, but there is still a lot to learn. News Center Maine's Hannah Yeshivi is in Sanford, where one of the first reports came in. She joins us live with the latest. Hannah.
Hi, good morning, Amanda. According to officials, the threats made this morning at multiple Maine schools, as you just said, are a hoax. They are not true. And I repeat, they are not true. And this type of situation has caused a lot of stress to parents, teachers, students, first responders. And as you can see in this video, these are just some of the images of students being bussed out of the school to a nearby memorial gym. For parents to pick up the students as police keep investigating the situation. But let's back up a little bit. Lieutenant Matthew Gagne with the Sanford Police Department told reporters just a few hours ago in a press conference that at 8:30 this morning, the Sanford Police Department received a call of an active shooter. The lieutenant said the caller identified itself as a teacher, saying there were injuries, and went on to describe how the shooter looked like. The school resource officer and police department officers, lieutenants, fire departments immediately got to the school to start the search. After that search, no injuries are reported at the school. I repeat, no injuries are reported at the school, and no active shooter was reported to be at the school. The Sanford fire chief added that a bunch of ambulances and cruisers are still going to be on scene all day investigating this type of threat. They say this is a situation that nobody wants to go through, and that they are always ready to respond to any type of threats.
It's always a scary situation. You know, our first response is to get here as quickly as possible to save as many lives as possible. It's tough. You know, you have agencies from all around, both police and fire. The price tag on these is substantial, both not only the financial part, but also the man hours involved in getting everybody together.
Amanda, I have seen a lot of stressed parents here lining up in front of the school trying to figure out if their kids are safe. And as I said, this has caused just a lot of anxiety and stress. And this is just an example of a group of parents that were just in front of the school, and we were able to get some sound from them.
I can tell you that all kids are being bused to Memorial Day.
There are no. Back up! Listen, listen to me. There were no injuries reported. All students are being bused to Memorial Gym.
Reported.
What was that?
We reported. No injuries reported. We don't know anything. They keep saying. Why did no one tell us that all along?
We're not trying to hide any information.
So why is no one telling? I didn't say that. I said, why is no one telling us that? All this time we're standing here.
As I previously explained, 2/3 had been bused to Memorial Gym. They had 1/3 they were still busing.
Right. That doesn't mean no one's injured, though. That doesn't mean we know that. That doesn't mean anything.
And I'm telling you that now. This is the most recent update that we have. Okay.
Amanda, I'm going to get out of the way because a press conference is about to start, and we're going to take this press conference live, including the Superintendent of Schools here.
Untraceable number is a hoax, saying that they were in the school on the first floor. We did learn that, but we're now getting ready to talk to the superintendent right here.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Sawchuk. I'm the Commissioner for the Department of Public Safety here in Maine. Thank you very much for being here with us today as we attempt to put out some accurate information reference to a series of events that occurred across the state of Maine. So at approximately 8:20 this morning, 10 communities around the state received what we know now to be hoax-style phone calls into dispatch centers. And now those phone calls, those initial complaints, those threats were detailed in nature. And they highlighted supposed active shooter scenarios in our schools right here in the state of Maine. Some of those were clustered here in southern Maine, all the way up to the Bangor area and to down east Maine as well. I'm not going to list out exactly what communities were impacted today because I think local superintendents and local law enforcement should have the opportunity to address their own situations accordingly. But at 8:20, when those phone calls started right here in Sanford, we believe at this point, the dispatchers went into their protocols and officers and first responders of all sorts were dispatched to their communities and the proper addresses. I can tell you that what you witnessed here this morning was a Maine-style response to an event of this nature. It doesn't matter what color the uniform is. It doesn't matter how far you're coming from. We had people off duty, on duty, every single type of law enforcement in our state, followed shortly by our first responders from EMS and on the fire side to assist as necessary. Everybody snapped to immediate reaction. They went in as they should. They followed their training, and more importantly, they followed their heart here in Maine. I think as a country, we've seen some of these active shooter tragedies occur in other locations where, quite frankly, they were not handled properly. And because of that, people lost their lives. Well, here in Maine, I can tell you that our expectations are different. Our officers are different. And they are ready to defend the communities that they live in and that they support and love so much. So you saw that happen here today. And from speaking to other individuals through the MIAC and hospitals and Life Flight, and there was just a lot of resources prepared to act here this morning. Some of those additional resources that are in play here, we're working with our federal partners. The MIAC is heavily involved in coordinating information sharing. And, our federal partners are looking at the potential for federal charges here. This is not an investigative scenario where I expect we're going to be back with you at 4 o'clock this afternoon with a name and a booking photo. This is something that's going to take us a little longer to investigate. And we're comfortable with that in the sense that we know that there's no active threat in the state of Maine as of right now. We're very, very confident of that. And I think when this incident starts at 8:20 here in Sanford, again being that first school, they have very specific information to react to. And from the MIAC's perspective, when you're 4 or 5 calls deep, and it's the same kind of voice, it's the same phone number, it's the same threats, we have the opportunity to say, okay, this is starting to look like a swatting call, like a hoax scenario. This community and the other communities in question handled this absolutely perfectly. Incredibly proud of the work that they did. I've known Chief Anderson and his team, Deputy Chief Small, for years. They've got a great police department down here. And if you saw the flashing lights in the parking lot, you saw agencies from all over the state that are ready to roll in here and assist them. So I'm proud of every single one of them. And I am also thankful that you're here to help us spread the word because I know our community members are concerned, our parents are concerned, and rightfully so. They just didn't know what was going on. So not only is this a criminal scenario, but these are callous and inhumane acts against our kids, against our residents, against these parents. And we need to make sure that we're reacting to that accordingly. And from a law enforcement perspective, we are all in on a criminal investigation to see if we can bring somebody to justice reference to today's events. So again, thank you very much for being here. I'm going to turn this over to the superintendent, Matt Nelson, for some responses here from the school district. I know you'll have a lot of questions. We probably won't have a lot of answers, as you can imagine, this early on, but I'm happy to come back up and try to assist wherever possible. And again, thank you to Chief Anderson and his team. And you can see the partners that we have here. Chief Deputy Jeremy Forbes is here from York County. The Maine State Police is a heavy response as well to all of these various locations around the state. And it's dangerous to start thanking individual entities or mention people specifically because there's just so many people that are in play. We certainly don't want to miss anybody. So, Superintendent?
Thanks, Commissioner. Matt Nelson, Superintendent of Schools, Sanford School Department. Wow, been quite the day for us here in Sanford. As Chief mentioned, it's very difficult when you're the first one in a situation like this, but I am first of all glad that it wasn't credible, that it was a hoax. That being said, I'm incredibly proud to be the superintendent in Sanford. I'm incredibly proud of our students and our staff and their response with our community and with our public safety members and emergency services and our families. Very challenging, especially when you have the information out there when you're not sure if it's credible or not. Our people, we practice these, and we practice these for a reason. And as we practice today, we got real practice, because this was one where that uncertainty of going on and the information that was flying by. But I was so proud of our students and our staff. We've worked hard. Safety is one of our top priorities in Sanford. And as we do that, whether it's through our ALICE training and the things that we've been able to coordinate with the city and our responses to be able to do that, you saw it in action today. And as I said, very fortunate that it was not credible and a hoax, but at the same time very proud of our students and our staff and our community and all the resources that you saw come together and rally to help us work through this. Once we had information, we went into a lockdown situation, and then as information became aware, we then transitioned students over into the gym area. We then transitioned after that, after everyone's accounted for, transitioning our students and staff to buses. Our buses were able to get here, and they were able to move our kids over to the reunification site for that, so that we're able to, at the same time, be doing our best to send out information as soon as we could to our families that was accurate, to be able to get that information out for that. Obviously, we're not continuing in school today. We're debriefing with our staff. We're not planning to have school tomorrow for our Sanford High School and Sanford Regional Technical Center. Our people have been through a lot today, and we want to make sure that, first of all, that we're all okay. School's important, but right now there's some things that are a little bit more of a priority for us in terms of making sure that our kids and our staff, their well-being is okay. We're going to have counselors available tomorrow for our kids and for students and for our staff. And we're going to work on tomorrow with our staff so that we can make sure that we have a response of something of this nature that's going to be appropriate and ready for our hopes of our students being able to come back to school on Thursday, and for us to be able to move along and do our best to try to move forward with that. I can't thank enough, as you see the people behind us, as hard as this is, to see how quickly and the response times that come in to be able to do that. You talk about a dry run. This was a dry run, but it was also one that had the best outcome possible for that. So as I started, I'll end with the same thing. I'm incredibly proud to be the superintendent in Sanford. For our students and our staff and the wonderful community we have behind us. It's not, I don't wish this on anyone, but at the same time, it's gratifying to know that we're going to be able to move forward and also be in a situation where there wasn't a tragedy. I'm not good at these, so I don't know what's next with that.
Are there any questions? Maybe a couple of questions. If we can answer them, we will. There won't be a long Q&A either way. But Matt.
How soon did it become apparent that this was not a true threat? And what led you to that? You know, was it consensus that there was no active shooter? And how soon does that information make its way?
Yeah, I don't have an exact time frame for you, Matt. I would say that, from a statewide perspective, specifically with the Maine State Police, they're responding to multiple locations around the state. So as we have troopers and troop commanders arrive at those various locations, at the same time, our dispatchers are connecting the dots. Is this the same phone number? Is this the same information? Is it exactly the same details? It's the same accent. That kind of information is very helpful for us. And then we start to hear real-time information from the chief here and his team, and our troop commander down here, Lieutenant Burton, saying, we don't have any reports of shots fired. We don't have any patients here. So you start to put that bit of information together, connect the dots, and then when we're 4 or 5 deep, it's very consistent. We're very confident that these are an actual hoax-style swatting situation.
Can you just run through the timeline of how soon the calls came one after the other this morning?
I don't have those details for you right now. I think it's a little early on that end. Again, I do know that there were 10 communities that we're aware of that suffered from this, and I think based on that continuum, there are various responses per community. right? Again, Sanford early, no other correlating information at all. So they're heavily involved and heavily invested, and rightfully so. But if you're the 6th, 7th, or 8th school in that, there's additional information for us to give them and for them to do an analysis on locally.
This was the first.
Yes, we believe it was the first. That's correct.
Obviously, this is a very unique situation of what happened here today, of having multiple communities involved. Moving forward, are you going to train for something like that, of how you allocate the resources to better figure out just what's accurate and what's not, knowing that any of those different communities could have had an actual active shooter?
I think that the reality here is that this went so well because those trainings and those relationships already exist, right? You saw the end product of some of that work. So these officers are trained with the latest tactics and certainly have the mutual aid partnerships to handle these situations correctly. There's no question that out of this, this community is going to learn, and Chief Anderson's going to share with the rest of the state, the rest of our law enforcement partners, the good, the bad, what we would do different, because this is as close as you're going to get to a situation that's not, that doesn't end up being real. So we always look at situations, whether it's national, and we hear debriefs, we take that information in, change our protocols, change our training, change our approach, and we have those conversations with our officers real time. There is a guarantee that this afternoon, departments all over the state are going to have a conversation about what's our active shooter policy again, who are we having connections with, have we talked to the school recently. We're going to use this scenario to learn as a state and certainly as first responders. There's no question about that.
If the person that did this is watching right now and looking for that attention, what do you want to say to them?
You know, from an attention standpoint, I could care less. If you commit a crime like this in the state of Maine, we're going to come after you. And we're coming after you with our partners at the federal level. Everybody in this state is heavily plugged in and heavily invested in an outcome here. So we're going to do it the right way. We're going to do it the right way every single time. And if this happens again tomorrow, and we hope it doesn't, you're going to see this same level of response. Officers will respond. They will go through the door, and they will protect the residents of the state of Maine. I sleep incredibly well in this state knowing the first responders, the quality we have of individuals here in the state of Maine. All right, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Have a good day now.
Thank you, guys.
As you can see, we're just wrapping up this.
Amanda, as you just heard, this is the latest from officials here in Sanford. There won't be school tomorrow here at Sanford High School, but there will be counselors for teachers, parents, and students. And the most important thing to keep highlighting is that this threat was not true and it's a hoax. Amanda, back to you.
And Hannah, just to wrap all this up, you know, obviously there was a huge response with agencies all across the state. We know that Maine Medical Center in Portland and Northern Light Health in Bangor, they were both prepared to take in a number of patients coming out of these alleged active shooter situations, which, as you said, we now know is a hoax. But big agency presence, you talked to some of them this morning. Was there a level of frustration? I mean, obviously they've learned from this too.
Yeah, frustration, stress, anxiety, and I don't know if you could tell, but the superintendent here was pretty emotional when he was speaking about this because they don't take these threats lightly. Even though that you prepare for these type of situations, it's a really stressful type of situation. There were a lot of first responders here, have been here for the past 3 hours. They are still here trying to tie loose ends and figure out how to deal with these situations that are never easy to deal with. And as you just heard, more than 10 communities and different schools were impacted by this caller. Amanda.
Hannah Yashivi live in Sanford for us. Thank you, Hannah. And of course, we will continue to follow this story. We'll have updates on air and online. You can download our News Center Maine app for the latest.